A heavy leather briefcase hits the boardroom table. James stands at the head, looking ruthless. Dark circles under his eyes are hidden, but the fire in them is real. 6 men sit around him, mercenaries and bounty hunters used by his father. James opens the briefcase. Stacks of cash gleam. 2 billion dong. "Find her," James says coldly. He slides a security photo of Diep across the table. "Nguyen Tu Diep, the thief who stole my family's necklace. She has company secrets. I want her found tonight." A man with a scarred cheek picks up the photo, grinning. "Dead or alive, Mr. James?" Silence. James leans in, face inches from the scarred man. "Alive," he hisses. "She stole my money. I want her to pay it back. If she dies or gets hurt, you don't get paid. Bring her intact. Understand?" "Understood," the scarred man laughs, pocketing the photo. "Easy work. A woman with a kid won't get far." The men grab the cash and leave. When the door closes, James collapses into his chair, gasping. He texts Vance, "I bought time. They report to me now. Get to the South District. Intercept her before Scars does." James looks at the security camera in the corner. He knows his father's watching. He straightens his tie, masking his pain. The hunt has begun. He has to win it to save his prey. 5 miles away in the South District slums, rain pummels tin roofs. Diep is huddled in a damp back room of a noodle shop. Little Nee is sleeping on cardboard, shivering with fever. Diep sits by the window, hand on her silent stomach. Dizziness hits her. She hasn't eaten in 24 hours. She pulls out Mrs. Huyen's envelope, gold and cash. A fortune she cannot spend. Pawn shops would alert Hoan instantly. It is useless metal. "Mommy," Nee whimpers, "the water is black." Diep rushes to her burning daughter, wiping her forehead with rainwater. "It's okay, baby. Mommy is here." Nai needs medicine. The pharmacy is 3 blocks away. Risky, but Diep has no choice. She pulls up her hood, tucks a small knife into her pocket, and steps into the storm. Streets are flooded. Neon signs reflect on black water. Diep walks fast. She passes an electronics store window. A news report is playing. Diep freezes. Her face is on the screen. "Wanted reward 2 billion dong. Contact Hone Corp." Diep stumbles back. James. He is hunting her. He put a price on her head. Every person on this street is now an enemy. Fear pierces her heart. She thought she escaped him. She was wrong. He wants to destroy her completely. "Hey, you!" Diep spins. Men under an awning point at her. "That jacket looks like the one on TV." Diep runs. She splashes through puddles, sprinting into an alley. "Get her!" Heavy footsteps follow. Her pregnant belly pulls her down. She slips in mud, scrambles up, diving deeper into the maze of slums. She spots trash bags behind a restaurant and dives behind them, curling tight. Footsteps thunder past. Where did she go? 2 billion is ours, boys. The voices fade. Diep exhales, trembling. She waits 10 minutes. Silence. She crawls out. She has to get back to Nai. Suddenly, a hand clamps over her mouth. Diep's eyes widen. She tries to stab with her knife, but a strong arm pins her against the wall. A huge man in a helmet looms over her. "Quiet!" he hisses. The voice is familiar. He drags her into shadows and lifts his visor. It is Vance. Diep freezes. James's dog. "Let me go!" she muffles against his hand. "Stop fighting, Mrs. Diep," Vance whispers urgently. "I am not here to hurt you. Mr. James sent me." Diep stares, confused and hateful. "James," she spits as he releases her. "He put a bounty on me. I saw it on TV." "He had to," Vance says quickly, handing her a bag of medicine. "If he didn't, Mr. Hoan would send killers. The bounty makes people look for you to sell you, not kill you. It keeps you alive." "Liar!" Diep slaps the bag away. Pills spill into the mud. Medicine for Nai. He wants me in prison or dead. He knows about the baby, Vance says. The world stops. Diep backs against the wall. No, she whispers. He knows. He is buying you time. Listen, the scarred man is close. You cannot go back to the noodle shop. Nye is there, Diep screams in panic. I already have her, Vance says, pointing to a black sedan. Mrs. Huyen is inside holding Nye. Diep stares at the car, then Vance. Why is James doing this? Is it a trap? Get in, Vance orders. Mr. James has a safe house in the countryside. You will be safe there. And then what? He takes the baby? Diep asks, trembling. Vance looks at her with pity. Just get in, please. For the child. Diep looks at the medicine, then at the menacing city shadows. She has no choice. She snatches the medicine and runs to the car, diving into the back seat with Nye. Vance jumps in. As they pull away, Diep looks out the rear window. A digital billboard flashes the wanted poster with James's contact name. I hate you, Diep thinks, clutching her stomach. I hate you for hunting me. I hate you for saving me. Back in the office, James's phone buzzes. A blue dot moves away from the city. Safe. He closes his eyes, exhaling. He calls the scarred man. She was spotted in the North District, James lies smoothly. Send all your men there. On it, boss. James hangs up and pours a drink. He is playing a dangerous game. Hunter and protector. One wrong move, and everyone he loves dies. The black sedan rattles over the gravel road. Vance grips the wheel. In the back, silence is heavier than the storm. Little Nye sleeps on Mrs. Huyen's lap, fever breaking. Diep sits by the window, clutching the medicine bag like a weapon. She winces at every bump, hand protecting her stomach. We are here, Vance whispers. The car pulls up to a dilapidated farmhouse hidden behind bamboo. It looks abandoned. This is the safe house? Diep asks, suspicious. It looks like a grave. It is invisible, Vance says, killing the engine. No digital footprint. James bought this under a shell company. Even his father doesn't know it exists. Mrs. Huyen carries Nye inside. Vance lights a kerosene lamp. The dusty interior is stocked with food. In the corner, covered by a sheet, stands a wooden crib. Diep pulls the sheet away. Hand-carved wood. Inside sits a stuffed rabbit, identical to James's first gift. He made it himself, Mrs. Huyen says softly. He spent weekends sanding it. He wanted to be ready, in case you agreed to marry him. Diep stares. A lump forms in her throat. She sees the ghost of the man she loved. Then she remembers the handcuffs, the wanted poster. The crack in her heart seals. He built a cage, Diep says coldly, just like the prison cell. Diep, please, Mrs. Huyen pleads. James is hurting too. I see enough, Diep snaps. I see a man who sold me. Don't speak his name. She slams the medicine bag on the table. It tips over. Bottles roll out, and something else falls with a plastic clack. A black disc, red light blinking. Beep, beep. Diep picks it up. Blood runs cold. A GPS tracker. She looks at Vance with pure betrayal. You said I was safe. You said he wanted to save me. Vance's eyes widen. Mrs. Diep, wait. That's just to monitor. It's a leash, Diep screams. She throws the tracker against the wall. It shatters. He's tracking me. He's leading Hoan right to us. This isn't a safe house. It's a holding pen. No, Vance yells. If you destroy that, the signal dies. He won't know you're safe. Good, Diep roars. She wakes Nye. The child cries. Mrs. Diep, stop! Vance blocks the door. The scarred man is searching. If you leave, you are visible. Get out of my way, Diep hisses, pointing her knife at Vance. I trusted you. I won't let him take my child. Vance looks at the trembling blade. He steps aside. Diep kicks the door open. She runs into the night with Nye, disappearing into the woods. Vance stares at the broken tracker. The red light dies. Meanwhile, in the high-rise office, James stares at his tablet. The blue dot is stationary. He sips his whiskey. Safe. Suddenly, the dot turns gray. Signal lost. James drops the glass. It shatters. He taps the screen frantically. Nothing. No, he whispers. Diep, what did you do? The door bursts open. James hides the tablet. It is Mr. Hoan. He is smiling a cruel reptilian smile. You look pale, son, Hoan says. Trouble with the hunt? Technical difficulties, James says, hard-hammering. The tracking team lost the signal in the North District. The storm. The North District, Hoan repeats, walking to the window. Interesting. My men reported the North is empty. James stiffens. They missed her. She is crafty. Or, Hoan turns, eyes boring into James. She was never in the North. I took insurance, James. I put a second team on Vance's car. James feels the blood drain from his face. They followed your loyal dog. Hoan checks his watch. They are at an old farmhouse in the south. And guess what? They just saw a woman running into the woods. James lunges for his phone. 2 bodyguards block him. Sit down, Hoan growls. You played a good game, but I wrote the rules. Hoan puts his phone on speaker. Report! The scarred man's voice crackles. We have eyes on the target, boss. She is running slow. She has the kid. Permission to engage? James wants to scream. But if he moves, Hoan orders the kill. Bring them to me, Hoan says, watching James with sadistic pleasure. If she struggles, break a leg. She won't need to walk where she is going. Copy that, the scarred man laughs. Hoan hangs up. He pours a drink. Now, he says to James's paralyzed face, we wait. Tonight we celebrate the family reunion. In the woods, Diep runs. Branches whip her face. Mud sucks at her shoes. Nye cries on her shoulder. Mommy, I'm scared. Hush, baby, Diep gasps, clutching her stomach. Pain returns, sharp. She stumbles against a tree. She looks back. Flashlights cut through the darkness. 5, 6. They found her. She pushes off the tree. She cannot outrun them with a child. She spots an old drainage pipe half buried in mud. Small, filthy, hidden. Nye, Diep whispers, putting her daughter down. She wraps her jacket around Nye. Listen, play hide and seek, crawl in there. Go to the back, do not make a sound. No matter what, do not come out until the sun comes up, promise. Mommy, come with me, Nye sobs. I can't, Diep chokes. I have to lead the monsters away. Go, now! She pushes Nye into the pipe and covers it with leaves. She stands up, wiping tears. She screams, a primal sound to draw the hunters. I'm here, she yells, running into the open clearing. The flashlights swing toward her. Footsteps change direction. Diep runs for her daughter. She runs for her unborn child. But as she reaches the clearing, a blinding light hits her face. The scarred man steps out, swinging a heavy metal pipe. He strikes. Diep falls. Darkness swallows her.
Diep bị James trao thưởng truy tìm 2 tỷ đồng, buộc phải chạy trốn trong các khu ổ chuột để cứu Nhi đang sốt cao. Cô phát hiện gương mặt mình xuất hiện trên truyền hình với danh nghĩa tội phạm bị săn đuổi. Hiểu rằng James là kẻ vừa săn vừa là người bảo vệ. Vance bí mật đưa Diep và Nhi tới căn nhà an toàn do James chuẩn bị, nhưng tại đó Diep phát hiện thiết bị định vị giấu trong túi thuốc. Tin rằng James muốn kiểm soát và cướp đứa bé, Diep phá hủy thiết bị, ôm Nhi bỏ trốn vào rừng. Việc mất tín hiệu khiến James hoảng loạn. Trong khi Mr. Hoang lật bài, ông đã theo dõi Vance và ra lệnh cho nhóm sát thủ truy bắt Diep. Bị dồn vào đường cùng, Diep giấu Nhi trong cống thoát nước, một mình lao ra đánh lạc hướng. Cuộc săn khép lại bằng cú đánh tàn nhẫn, nhấn chìm và Diep vào trong bóng tối.